to participate in this moderation. This afternoon we're going to look at the computer skills unit, if that's okay. So I've printed it off for you so that you can see what's involved. There's 3 elements that have to be taught and assessed, and a lot of required knowledge and skills. And the required knowledge and skills, it's a lot higher level than what they're actually expected to do when you read through. But obviously it's not all just in this unit. Because it's using the computer, you can't really just teach it on its own, it's got to have some content. So I've been using the other units as well, so trying to cluster them together so that what they're actually doing on the computers makes sense and it's worthwhile to them. And the output from that can be used for the assessments as well, so we've collected that together. I've mapped the assessments for you on here. You can take them out just so I can keep them together. The assessments that I've planned to do with them were a variety of things really to try and enable them to give the evidence that's needed to show without too much reading involved, because obviously their literacy levels are about 1, 1.5. So a lot of it is actually doing the work and the observing it, or their own self-assessment that I read through with them so that they know what the things are. I'll go back to this document because there's an area of the elements that I am concerned that we've not been able to access because of the facilities really, it's not because of the students. So I'll come back to that one if I can and I'll talk to you about it. I thought it might be helpful if I give you the work that we've been doing as well, so that you can see where the assessments fit into that. So this was their workbook, this Computer Basics, and we spent a couple of sessions working through this. I tried to make it as low-level literacy as possible so that they could access it without cutting out the technical language that they obviously need to do because it's part of the performance criteria that they've got. So this was some of the information Bakker gave me that he was working with his group at a different level, and some of it was work that I just made up for them. But it takes them through the various aspects of the computer, what they need, what the parts are, how to use it. I've made a document how to start using Word at DXL because it was quite difficult for me to remember the instructions. The cards there are very useful, but they kept forgetting what it was they had to do. So it just makes it simple for them. A lot of the students when we started had no experience using computers at all. We went to visit the library so we could see the free facilities there and how they could get on with their free sessions, they don't have to pay. And some of them have been back in there to use them, which is great. It's really good. Part of the competencies that the student should be doing it is to save work and then print it. But obviously with the facilities in there, there's a mid-stage, so they've learned how to save to my data stick and then come and sit with me and do the printing part of it. So we're trying to get around that sort of facilities difficulty.
So that's, I guess, a resource.
Yeah, it's a resource implication really. I think if the computers in there were networked, it would make it a lot easier for them to save the work because they can only save to that dedicated one that they're on or onto a data stick. And because they're not using computers at home, they're not using data sticks or USB sticks. You know, it's just new to them really. So, if I give you the different bits to what I think would fulfil the assessment requirements, please be honest, and if you think it's rubbish, just say so, because that's part of me learning to improve it. So these are the possibles for them to use.
Okay, so is this the assessment task
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
And this is the parts of the computer.
Yeah, so the first one is a very basic one, where they match the different parts of the
Right.
computer.
Yeah.
Some of it come out.
But to make sure that they really understand what they're doing, and it's not just a random or a copy, I would want them to talk about it with a partner
Yeah.
and then talk to me about it.
Okay.
So that then, in that little pack, there should be one parts of the computer, what they are and what they do,
It is.
which I can then get one in
That's
there.
all right. We can. Yep.
So that I can use exactly the same sheet, but record whether, first of all, they can point to things in the classroom
Right, as an observation.
as an observation,
Right.
and
So
then
the visual.
looking at that for the visual, that they've correctly matched it, and then that they can explain it.
Yes,
Because to write it, I think, would be too difficult.
sure.
They could do it, but it would be more than they need to do really for that particular one.
So just can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
So just with the parts of the, because I'm looking at the performance criteria,
Mhm.
criterion elements, and we can check through those. Would we consider, so this is the actual aspect where they match everything?
Yes, yeah,
And that's
part
one, that's part
Yeah.
one. And then the observation element, do you think that we would put that together as an observation as part of this one? Do you think to see, the question would be is
Yeah.
whether we would combine those two together
Yeah.
as a one,
I
as
think
a,
so. I
as
think
an
Absolutely.
the two
assessment?
would be
Yeah,
would
they
be
go hand in
together.
hand.
So that would be
Yeah.
one
They're
assessment?
just aspects
Yeah,
of it, because
Sure.
once they've done the matching, I would want them to talk it through.
yes.
So that would be more evidence.
And then your
And I would
observation,
use
yeah.
this observation sheet to help me
Right.
to record really. It's just
Okay.
more of a
Yeah, yeah.
recording sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being identified on the mapping document well.
So,
Christine.
so parts of the computer is this one, then the trainer observation checklist is that one,
Yeah.
and then the word process document.
Instruction document is the next one.
Okay,
And should have that one in
Yep.
the pack.
so this
Yes.
one?
So this was trying to combine what they were
Oh, yes.
doing in writing instructions,
Yep.
which they had to do, and also using the computer. So I taught them, we did a lot of work about instructions as a text type, the
Mhm.
criteria for the text type, so they were well versed in it. They were even using, chronological order, which was great. They were into it. We did a lot of work doing it just writing, which you see in the folders afterwards, and then we tried to do it on the computer. So this is a sort of combination of the instructions text, but trying to use it for the computer unit assessments.
Right.
So these were the things that they knew they had to try and do.
Mhm.
It's also things that they should be able to do for the computer unit.
Okay,
So it's observation
okay.
and the document combination
So
of
then
the two.
the document's attached to this,
Yeah.
so you've
Yeah.
observed, tick, tick, tick,
I like
gone
it.
through, they've achieved, each of the tasks, and then it's attached to the.
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
two would be together. So
That's
Right.
very straightforward.
clearly what we need to use. So, the last one was the self-assessment sheet, the student self-assessment, and then the trainer's observation.
Yep.
I can.
Yeah. So this is actually as part of the booklet, so they've used this as part of their computer basics already.
Yeah.
But I would hope to do a second sheet that they would go through, maybe when they've done this, so there should be a progress between the
quick
two,
level.
and date it, so that these are the things that they would be learning and that we want to check. They can do self-assessment, but then
Yeah.
there's this tutor version of it, the training version,
Yes.
where it's exactly the
Replicates
same,
exactly
but
the
the
same.
student can. And that would be through observation and through work sample as well.
And you've got evidence of recording the day. It's comprehensive, Christine.
But I'd be very grateful for any feedback as to how it could be improved.
Okay. Shall we look at
Yeah.
each of the tasks and go through them?
Shall we, would it
We'll
be helpful to look at this
Yeah.
so that we can do the two at the same time?
Yeah.
This one that I've,
Yeah. So, start with the first one, which is the parts of the computer.
So, is it valid? Does it address all the parts of this unit? I think it did because
Absolutely.
I copied and pasted it.
100% it did. Yes.
Yeah, the words, the steps. Yeah, so verbally and in written, they've had to perform the tasks. Yes, so they've had to request assistance as
Mhm.
well.
Absolutely.
Select. So, in the sense of the language learning activity, that's part of this whole process,
Yes,
really, isn't it?
yeah. Yeah, and it was a learning curve for some of those students for the required socio-linguistic and cultural knowledge and
Yes,
skills
yes.
to say a range of common polite expression, not I need you now, come here, or oi, I need you, but to say could I have some help and to say thank you afterwards, which is all part of learning. It's interesting. Some cultural elements.
As you mentioned, the required knowledge and skills for this unit are very comprehensive.
Oh, okay.
I found it very difficult to actually map them to the different parts of it, though, because it was across all
It's
of
a-
the
it's a-
different areas.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
not just a standalone unit, what you
Yeah.
mentioned before, you're combining other components from the qualification.
Look, I think for assessment task one, in the question that we said was before about the printing, so they haven't actually printed. So that's maybe some thought that it's not relevant to this one yet because they don't actually have to print
Not at this
at this
stage.
stage. So
Later on.
later on we can look at that. But I think, reading through the key parts, I mean, nothing's really standing
think
out that's not covered in
The one for
in the-
me that I didn't feel that I'd actually covered was the second element, perform a simple task. Is that one? Yes, 2-3.
Oh, that's the one I
Follow
noticed.
workplace health
Correct.
and safety
It's exactly.
instructions.
Well, I guess
Related to use of technology.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, in a sense of continuous improvement, this is where we could look at adding a step or adding an aspect in here that gets them to think. I mean, it's not part of the computer, so maybe you could add an extra page that would be which parts of the computer could potentially pose a hazard or a risk,
Yeah.
or we can look at the ergonomics.
Well, you look at the use of stretching. I saw that that's
Yeah.
exactly.
That was the only bit I could get in there
Yeah.
really to do it.
Our
Because
piece-
our PCs don't have the workstations,
No,
so
no. On some of our PCs, we have the prompt card to remind people about the exercises unit position.
that might be
Yeah.
something that you could put in
Could
there.
put them on all of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Continuous improvement. Like you mentioned, Becky.
So that's something in a sense of
Note
our
that down.
notes. In our
Maybe-
validation checklist, we can include and
Yeah, I think so.
include.
Have a little, as we do in ours, it should be in the training facilities, all of the computers, a little prompt card about
And look,
stretching.
but also to, and we'll come back to the printing thing, but I think from a resource, maybe we could get approval for when that particular assessment's done and they can all print, so then they can actually go through the process of
Yeah.
printing.
I mean, they know how to do printing from my data stick,
Mm.
so they save it onto my data stick and then can sit down and do the actions from the data stick. So they know how to do it. But it's not the same as just doing it straight from their own system. Okay.
Purpose of the assessment, back to valid, I
Yeah.
think is absolutely clear. There'd be no confusion as to why they're doing a particular task. As you mentioned, the skills and knowledge
Yeah.
absolutely has been focused on heavily in your mapping document as well, Christine.
It's quite difficult to get that pitch at the right APF level to make sure that they're getting what they need to for the course, but they can access it for literacy. And that,
What are they? Short, simple,
Yeah.
verbal screen instructions. Simple terminology, what you mentioned before, and spoken in written English.
Because because some of the words can sound a bit complex.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's great to see them using their mobile phones for translation. So like when we were doing the instructional text, and I said chronological, and I explained it in English, but I saw them looking it up and to check what it was in their own language so you can understand it more. So, I mean, this unit could be extended to using other digital technology.
Sure.
That's
It
right.
doesn't
Sure.
have to
No.
be just the computer,
That's right.
but it's an element, it's an area that they need to be taught how to use so that
Yes.
they can access it for everything.
And then it can be applied to different forms
Yeah.
of technology.
Yeah. Do you think it's flexible? Is it, can it be adapted to meet the needs? It's difficult if they're not there to do it, and it's ongoing.
For the first one, I think when we talk about flexible, so we're talking about thinking if, say, a student has a disability, and if we need to think of a different sort of delivery approach to offering that assessment. I mean, in your particular class, there wasn't any sort of concerns or any.
No, visual, only one student, Yasmin, who was having difficulties with sight, but she just took breaks when she needed to. Nobody else had.
So in a sense of reasonable adjustment, that's a separate thing. But I mean, flexibility. I think
so.
it sounds like there is, and I think if we've needed to.
Absolutely. Providing they were there, as you said.
And do you think it's fair? Does it, obviously there's not instructions on these at this point for the students, but they might be verbal anyway.
I don't think you've gone above and beyond the requirements of the assessment tasks.
I guess the question is whether we do a paragraph to introduce each of the assessments, because there is a verbal introduction, obviously, the training that we do, but maybe consider if we did a bit of just a paragraph to explain what the activity is, which is what that's done here. I mean, that's a self-assessment checklist. Maybe it would describe,
Please complete.
but just describe what the purpose of this is. Sometimes, when we look at the assessments, there's an objective to what.
It would be important if it wasn't the trainer who was doing it, if it was a different assessor, to do it in language that could just be read out with a simple enough form as well. Because I know sometimes different people are assessing.
But I think, it looks pretty clear. It's just if there's a continuous improvement thought is to put a 2 lines as an introduction to the
Just to
assessments like that.
the objective of the task.
And the evidence, it says focus on evidence only for qualification.
Definitely.
Course. Yeah. Well, it's not asking for anything more than what's required.
No.
Not going outside the parameters of the elements.
And nobody wanted recognition of prior learning.
No,
so
it's not a consideration.
And you often see there being anything about fairness, being there any candidates being disadvantaged by this.
Nope.
I think it's very thorough. Just that little paragraph would potentially be one aspect of continuous improvement.
Sufficiency, absolutely, because we're covering multiple strategies to determine competence. So across the board, there's a possibility to look at 4 separate tasks with sufficiency. Competence over a period of time, correct? It's not just a single opportunity. There's numerous attempts. So all of this sufficiency is excellent.
And do you think that would be enough evidence
Oh,
for
yes.
the unit? Yeah,
Absolutely.
to correct this to them.
My word.
It should be current
Yes.
if they're there doing it. It should be.
Yes.
And with the observation as well.
Yes.
That checks that out, that it's not just CBS's work that they've got there.
Correct.
It should be a
Printed version.